I grew up in a loving and ordinary family, surrounded by good friends. In terms of looks, academics, and sports, I was just average, but I always felt incredibly fortunate to have such good people around me. Perhaps that's why I tend to trust people too much. Because of this, I've often been called naive or even mystical by some. This story is about my pathetic mother-in-law who took advantage of my trusting nature. My name is Mary. I'm 31 years old and I work as a salesperson. My husband Jake and I got married just a year ago, so I still feel like a newlywed. I used to say, let's have a baby, but honestly, I was still enjoying our newlywed life. Jake's parents are still together and live about 20 minutes away from our apartment. His mom, Diane, often invites us over for dinner, and we enjoy a family meal at their house about once a month. Some of my friends have worried, saying, isn't it too much to visit your in-laws that often? But Tom, Jake's dad, is great to talk to and Diane is sweet, so I've never found it bothersome. Besides, Diane seems to prefer working alone in the kitchen, so I'm always treated like a guest. I used to happily join Jake and Tom in chatting until dinner was served, making it easier than preparing a meal at home. However, there was one thing that concerned me. One evening, we were at the in-laws' house for another family dinner. When I tasted the chicken soup Diane made, I couldn't help but grimace internally. What's wrong, Mary? Jake asked, noticing my hesitation. Oh, nothing, I replied, forcing a smile. I've just never had celery and chicken soup at my parents' place before. It's interesting and delicious, Diane. Thank you. There's plenty more if you'd like, Diane responded, looking pleased. I struggled to keep smiling. Another bowl of that soup would surely send my blood pressure through the roof. It was incredibly salty. I glanced at Jake and Tom, but they seemed to be enjoying it just fine. I realized that this intense flavor was normal home cooking for them. That night, like many before, I forced myself to finish the soup, despite the overwhelming sodium content. Apparently, my in-laws have a preference for extremely strong flavors. Diane's cooking could be as salty as seawater or as sweet as condensed milk. The first time I tasted it, I nearly spit it out, but the rest of the family ate it like any other meal. I was astonished by their taste preferences. I felt bad leaving food uneaten, so I usually ate everything, but it often upset my stomach. The health impact of eating such intensely flavored food regularly became a major concern for me. I consulted with a nutritionist friend and even started collecting recipes and pamphlets, but there was no way a new daughter-in-law could say, your cooking is too rich in flavor. Please modify your recipes. At home, I cooked with normal seasonings, exactly as the recipes instructed, and thought the food tasted good. I often asked Jake, is it good? And he always replied sweetly, whatever you cook is delicious. But considering the rich food he grew up with, I couldn't fully believe he was being honest. Regardless, I prioritized our health and continued to cook with moderate seasonings. There was one more thing that worried me. Diane sometimes served less than fresh food. The rolls of bread on my plate were often dry and hard, and occasionally, the fruit served for dessert was partially rotten. I discreetly removed the bad parts, but it was another source of concern. I couldn't bring myself to eat, but I was increasingly worried that my in-laws might end up with food poisoning sooner or later. Cookies for a snack, Mary, Diane offered. To my horror, I realized the cookie she handed me had expired 6 months ago. Jake noticed too, and quickly spoke up, Mom, these cookies are expired. Diane looked startled and then laughed it off, saying, oh no, I'm so careless. I felt relieved that she didn't seem too concerned, but my relief turned to alarm when I found the same box of expired cookies mixed into the snack bag she gave me on our next visit. I had seen this kind of behavior before, the time my grandma started showing signs of dementia. Could it be happening to Diane too? She was only in her 50s, but I began to doubt whether her forgetfulness was just carelessness or something more serious. I wanted to talk to Jake about Diane's overly seasoned food and the possibility that she might be showing early signs of dementia, but I was afraid it would be too much for him to handle. Then, one day, a small miracle happened. We found out I was pregnant. I'm finally going to be a dad. Do you think it's a boy or a girl? Jake asked excitedly, stroking my belly every day. When should we tell our parents? Should we wait until the end of the first trimester? He continued. Well, the doctor just confirmed the heartbeat, but I want them to know in case something happens. We'll tell them after the 12-week checkup. I replied, I guess we just have to wait and see. I can't wait to tell everyone. I think my mom's going to cry when she hears the news, Jake said, his excitement infectious. You're right, I agreed, imagining Diane's tears of joy when she found out. It filled me with warmth and happiness. I was so thrilled about the pregnancy that I pushed my concerns aside. But the following weekend, when I saw Diane's chicken soup on the table, it hit me that there was a serious problem. If I ate her overly seasoned food, it might affect my baby. The pregnancy books I'd been reading warned that high blood pressure and diabetes could impact the health of both the mother and the baby. And what about stale bread and expired foods? They might not have harmed me before, but they could pose a risk to my unborn child. The thought made me anxious, and I couldn't bring myself to start eating. Oh no, Mary, you haven't eaten at all, Diane remarked, noticing my untouched plate. I hope it wasn't too bad for your taste, Diane said, glancing at my plate and frowning. Oh, no, it's not that, I quickly responded, but before I could explain, Jake jumped in, thinking it was morning sickness. She's just tired and doesn't have much of an appetite, he said, trying to save me. I see. Are you working too hard, Mary? Don't push yourself too much, Tom said kindly, while Diane's expression remained grim. Thank you, I replied, feeling guilty for leaving the food and lying to them. After everyone else finished their meal, Diane brought me a large brownie topped with ice cream and a cup of tea. Have some sweets at least. I'm sure it'll help you relax, she said, smiling. Thank you so much. What a thoughtful gesture, I said, deciding to at least take a bite. But recently, sweets have been giving me heartburn. I noticed Jake had a smaller piece without ice cream. I whispered to Jake so Diane wouldn't hear from the kitchen. Jake, can I switch with yours? Ha! Oh, sure, he replied, handing me his plate. I cut a small piece of the brownie. It was moist and soft, and I washed it down with tea. But as Jake cut into his piece, he frowned. This brownie is a little hard, he remarked. Just as he was about to take a bite, Diane suddenly burst out of the kitchen, shouting, No, 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 no. My heart jumped at her outburst. Jake looked equally puzzled as Diane snatched the brownie from his hand. Why are you eating Mary's brownie? I gave it to her, she exclaimed, clearly upset. Does it really matter who eats it? Jake asked, confused. Yes, it does. This one is outdated, Diane revealed, leaving us all in stunned silence. Her unexpected revelation hung in the air, leaving us both shocked and confused. I didn't notice the brownie was old because the ice cream was melting on top, I said, hoping to diffuse the tension. But my words only seemed to confirm Diane's intent. Jake turned to his mother, his voice calm but filled with a quiet fury that made the moment even more chilling. So you tried to hide the staleness by adding ice cream, didn't you, Mom? Diane's face went pale as she realized the severity of the situation. She scrambled to defend herself. No, that's not it. It's old, but it's still good, so I wanted Mary to have it. Jake wasn't convinced. Then why did you stop me so forcefully from eating it? You gave it to Mary knowing it wasn't safe. No way, Diane stammered, her voice trembling. Suddenly, it all clicked and a shiver ran down my spine as I pieced everything together. You've been feeding me stale food and giving me expired snacks on purpose, haven't you? What? Tom, who had been silent until now, glared at Diane with an intensity that sent chills through the room. What's going on, honey? Diane, visibly shaken, tried to explain herself. It wasn't on purpose. I just had some leftovers, and I didn't want to waste them, so I gave them to Mary. That's what you call on purpose, Jake shot back, his voice cold. I can't think of any good reason to make someone else eat food you don't want. But she's not really our family, Diane muttered, her voice barely audible. She's an outsider, so why not give her the old food? Jake's eyes narrowed. You became part of my family too, but you were never treated like that. No, but Diane's voice faltered as she banged on the table in a panic, her composure unraveling. As I watched her, my heart sank. The Diane I thought I knew was nowhere to be found. I had loved Diane so much, but now I was deeply disappointed. I wondered if everything I believed about her kindness was just an illusion. The more I thought about her betrayal, the more disgusted I felt. She now seemed like a distressed demon, scrambling to make excuses. But there was something else gnawing at me. Was it really harmless? Could it be that the intense flavors in your food were intentional too? What? What are you talking about? Tom and Jake looked at her in disbelief. Diane's expression faltered, revealing a hint of guilt. Jake grabbed my bowl of chicken soup despite Diane's desperate attempt to stop him. Don't, Jake. Ignoring her, he took a spoonful and immediately spat it out. This tastes like seawater. Tom, now suspicious, tried a spoonful from the untouched side of the bowl and scolded, Mary, have you always been eating this kind of food? Yes, I replied, feeling a wave of realization wash over me. I thought this was just how things were here, especially since you and Jake seemed to eat it without issue. That's because ours was normal, Jake said quietly, the weight of the situation sinking in. I see, so that's how it was. Seeing my realization, Jake's shoulders slumped as if the strength had been drained from him. How could you not notice? Was it more than just bad flavor? She's even been giving you expired snacks, Tom added, his anger evident. I thought she might have dementia. I confess, my voice trembling. Diane's mouth twitched in response. For a daughter-in-law she despised to the point of malice to think she had dementia, a condition she found humiliating, was a deep insult to her. How pathetic, Jake said, his voice gentle as he turned to me. You're so sweet, putting up with all of this because you thought she was sick. He then turned to Diane, his tone growing cold. But you, Mom, I can't believe you've been bullying such a good person who trusted you so much. Tom and Jake's disappointment hung heavily in the air, making the tension unbearable. Diane, once a figure I admired, now seemed like a stranger, her true nature finally revealed. I never imagined Diane could be this kind of person. That's why I consulted so many people, saying things like, Diane's taste buds seem off, and I'm worried about her health. She's still in her 50s, but she's showing signs of dementia. Dementia. Diane's expression quickly changed, a flicker of panic crossing her face as she realized her actions hadn't gone unnoticed. Yes, I talked to many people, my parents, friends, even some colleagues at work. I continued, pulling out a stack of pamphlets from my bag. They were all so helpful, giving me tips and resources. Here, take a look. I handed the pamphlets over, piling them on the table. I had been carrying them around, intending to discuss this with Tom and Jake someday. I never expected they'd come in handy in this way. Wow, you were really worried about her, Tom said, unfolding a pamphlet as if touched by my concern. But Diane was furious. You're terrible. I'm not sick, she shouted. No, it's you who are terrible, Jake snapped back. Unlike you, she has a pure heart. She was sincerely concerned about you. Shut up, shut up. Diane screamed, her voice shaking with rage. I never liked her from the beginning. She pointed at me, her eyes burning with anger. You, with your dumb face, took my beloved son away from me. He didn't even notice the harassment. Are you serious? You're an idiot if you can't see what an amazing woman Jake married. Tom shot back. You were fooled by your own jealousy. What? Diane was taken aback, her fury momentarily halted. In front of me, my in-laws were locked in a fierce argument. It was shocking and painful to see someone I once trusted turn against me so viciously. As I lay in bed that night, Jake whispered to me, Why didn't you tell me before we got married? If I had known. Diane, overhearing, looked momentarily hopeful, as if hoping for some redemption, but Jake's disappointment was clear. The rift between us all had deepened, and there was no going back. I knew it. Jake was on my side. If I had known earlier, he said quietly, I would have cut ties. Ignoring Diane's despair, Jake held me tightly. I'm sorry, Mary. I didn't realize how much you were going through. I'm sorry too, I replied, for not recognizing her true intentions sooner. Diane's eyes twitched, clearly shocked to hear such words from someone she had always looked down on. I married you because you were pure and kind, Jake continued. Don't worry, we'll never come here again. Wait, Diane pleaded, her voice desperate. You can't do this. I'm your mother. You were a terrible mother, Jake said firmly. I'll never let you see your grandchild. A grandchild? Diane's eyes widened as she finally noticed my belly. If only she had realized earlier, before her schemes consumed her, things might have turned out differently. Let's go, Mary, Jake said, extending his hand. I took it and slowly stood up. Wait, I'm sorry. Diane cried out, rushing to grab Jake's arm. It was just a small mistake. But Jake dismissed her, turning to me. I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. Diane glanced at me, her eyes full of disgust. I couldn't bring myself to forgive someone who had harbored such malice against me. Before she could say another word, I spoke up. I trusted you completely, and you betrayed that trust. I can never trust you again, not for the rest of my life. I won't allow someone like you near my precious child. Goodbye. No. Diane collapsed in anguish as we walked away without looking back. Tom, watching us leave, seemed to understand that we would never return. It's strange to think about it now, but if only Diane had cherished our relationship, she could have lived a happy life as a grandmother surrounded by her grandchildren. What a tragic mistake she made. When I finally told my parents and friends who had supported me, they all seemed relieved. You finally realize, they said, some stunned, others nodding knowingly. Apparently, everyone but me had been aware that I was being mistreated, but they hadn't said anything because they knew how genuinely concerned I was about Diane. At least they had listened to me, collecting pamphlets and offering advice, waiting for the day I'd see the truth for myself. When that day finally came, I felt a wave of shame and embarrassment. My face burned with it. But thanks to the mountain of material everyone had given me, I was able to prove that my concern had been genuine. Because of their help, Jake and Tom were completely on my side. I realized then just how blessed I was by the people around me. Now, 2 years later, my life has taken a different turn. I've been busy taking care of my little son, who is celebrating his first birthday today. I'm hard at work preparing a birthday cake, fried chicken, and other dishes I'm not accustomed to making. Jake has been a great dad, playing with our son and changing his diaper. In the midst of this, I get a call from Tom. He was invited to the birthday party, so I'd pick up the phone without hesitation, assuming he might need to ask me something. "Hello, Mary," says the voice on the other end, sweet and probing. It's not Tom. Even after 2 years, I recognized Diane's voice instantly. After we cut ties, we moved to a new place far away from her and only told Tom. I blocked Diane's number and had mine erased from her phone. Thanks to Jake and Tom acting as shields, I didn't have to endure an unwelcome visit at the hospital when I gave birth. I've been able to live a peaceful life, and now she wants to ruin it. Just hearing her voice sends a shiver down my spine. "Where's Tom?" I ask. "He's in the bathroom right now," she replies. "Isn't it my grandson's birthday today?" I don't think Tom told her, but she might have noticed him discreetly preparing a gift. Jake senses something's wrong from my tone and gestures to take over the phone, worry etched on his face. But I give him a thumbs up, indicating I've got this. I continue the call, knowing that the innocent, naive wife I once was is a thing of the past. "Listen, Mary," Diane begins. I genuinely feel terrible about what happened. Diane's voice trembled with regret. "I was wrong to do such mean things, and I regret it deeply." "Ha!" I replied, uncertain of her sudden change of heart. "I want to see my grandson soon. I'll buy him lots of cute clothes and toys." Diane continued, her voice trying to sound hopeful. "Okay, but I don't need you to hide needles in the toys or anything like that," I said firmly. "No, I wouldn't do something so horrible," Diane protested. "I mean, you think I'd do that after all those accusations?" "You fit me all those disgusting things," I countered. "It wasn't just a little too much salt or sugar. It was unhealthy and potentially dangerous." "But I really regret it," she insisted. "You're kind enough to understand that, right?" "I'm often told I'm kind," I said, "but it's not just kindness. I'm just too trusting. Once someone betrays that trust, it's gone forever." "So you'll never regain my trust," I told her firmly, "and I won't forgive you. I'll never let you see my precious son." "Wait, Mary." Diane's voice cut off as I ended the call. I could hear Tom and Diane yelling at each other on the other end. I hung up, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "Sorry for that," I said quietly to Jake. "You're getting stronger, Mary," Jake said, his voice filled with pride as he placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. Of course, I and his mother. My son looked content lying in his crib, and when he saw me, he flapped his little hands happily. I picked him up, rubbing my cheek against his soft, tiny body, which still carried a faint scent of milk. His eyes reflected pure joy as he looked at me, filling me with a wave of protective, maternal love. I've outgrown the gentle, naive wife I once was. Now, I'm determined to be strong and vigilant to protect my family. "Oh, it smells so good," I said, noticing the birthday cake was almost ready. My son's happy coos made us both smile broadly. In the past, I was carefree and blissfully unaware of others' malice. But that was because of the people who shielded me. Now, it's my turn to protect my family. I'm resolved to be strong so that these happy days can continue for a long time.